all the way from Regina, Saskatchewan, someone who bleeds green, but also shades of gold. I want you to say hello to my good friend, Greg Moore. Greg is co-host of The Green Zone, one of Saskatchewan's most popular radio programs. And Greg Moore comes to us from his den in Regina, Saskatchewan. Greg, it's so great to have you join us here, and we're looking forward to hearing your ideas on how a small business can move forward.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Gary. You look great in that polo. Wow.
Well, I wore it just for you.
I figured there was a tie in there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there is a backstory, and here's the quick backstory, because you always need the backstory. Greg, for a few years, you and Justin Rivas became the duo of Justin and Greg became like Canada's social media rock stars. So much so you initiated a legitimate provincial campaign to get the province of Saskatchewan to adopt the expansion Vegas Golden Knights, to the point where the crescendo had to be Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals, Vegas and the Washington Capitals. And there are you and Justin on the big screen.
Just a bizarre ride, an absolute bizarre ride. We actually just saw the premiere. I would have saw him about 3, 4, or 5 months ago before all this Corona stuff happened. And I brought up again, hey, you have told me and Justin that we're going to Vegas together. And he said, yeah, that's still happening. So that all came out of an idea. It was Justin's idea that, you know what, we wanted to interview the head writer of the Vegas Golden Knights, because we started a podcast and wanted to talk about marketing. And we thought, how do we get his attention? And so we made this video that said, you know what, we should make a campaign to get the Golden Knights Saskatchewan team, because if you know anything about Saskatchewan, we're smack dab in the middle of the Winnipeg Jets and the Flames and the Oilers. And the reality is no one really cares about Saskatchewan. And so we pitched in this video, we pitched to Vegas. Hey, please stop. We pitched to Vegas. My daughter's here with me. And this video kind of blew up down in Vegas because, of course, the Golden Knights are their first professional sports team. And they thought someone in Canada wants to cheer for Vegas. And of course, they probably thought it was Toronto, 14 million people, but no, it's a lowly Saskatchewan. And from there, I don't know how to describe it to you, Garrett, but it just kind of snowballed into, we went down there and they gave us access and media passes. And again, at this point, we're not verified media. We're just two guys who want to make the world smile. And then we went from there to the Stanley Cup playoffs and the finals, and the owner's son gave us tickets to the finals, and Vegas Tourism brought us down there to document it. And then, of course, Game 5, yeah, I wrote this script. I love to cheer for losers. I was an Atlanta Thrashers fan. The story of the underdog it's right up my alley. And they're losing. They're getting crushed in Game 4. And I told Justin, I said, this fan base is going to lose hope. So how do we make a video that lines up with this idea of inspiring them that, no, it's not over yet. You're down 3-1. And, of course, when we put it out there, it was seen by 500,000 people. We put it out at 11 a.m. in the morning. 500,000 people watched it. And then by 4 p.m. that afternoon, the head in-game experience person, his name's Johnny Greco, reached out to us and said, guys, this video has been shared around the office. This is his words. It's literally changing the atmosphere in the office. Can we use your video as the Game 5 intro in Vegas for the Stanley Cup Finals? And we thought long and hard about whether or not we should give him permission to do that.
Yeah, like all about what, 2 seconds?
Yeah, I said absolutely do it. We made some tweaks with him about it. It came out perfect. And the cool story, Gary, was they liked the video so much, they actually showed the players in the locker room, just an intimate setting before the game. And as a big hockey fan, that meant a lot to me. So,
well, and I'm glad we're sharing this story, because this will help anyone right now in the midst of this situation we're dealing with. I believe there's never been a better time to work on your business, and never been a better time to work on your brand in the online world. And the truth is, Greg, that's how you and I met, because I'm sitting in a Regina restaurant talking to Paul Martin, who's telling me about you guys. I don't even know about you, but he's telling me. And I go, what? He says, oh yeah, they got the province of Saskatchewan to somehow, with the premier, to a petition online, adopt the Vegas Golden Knights. I go to YouTube and I watched one of your, I think it was your first road trip to Vegas, the T-Mobile Arena. And I watched, like, I'm 24 minutes in and I can't believe you guys running around with your press passes. You know, you're Wayne and Garth right out of right out of Wayne's World backstage at the Alice Cooper concert.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we met through the online world, the magic of video, the magic of storytelling, which is
there, right?
And I just think I never forgot how two guys from their basement in Regina got on the big screen in front of 20,000 people at the biggest sporting event in the history of the entertainment capital of the world. I'm thinking social media is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's funny. The way you describe it, it's accurate. What you're saying is accurate, but I hear it now, and that was a couple of years ago now. I go, did that actually happen? And I'm so thankful we have the videos that have documented it, because yeah, that did happen. Two guys that just had a dream and wanted to tell great stories and make an impact in the world. It worked. It worked, and it continues to work in terms of the ripple effects from that story to this day.
Well, and this is what I want everyone watching to tap into, because once you really start to dive in, tell stories, the ripple effect, I think that's an accurate description, Greg. The ripple effect can go for decades if you think about how permanent the internet is. So now let's fast forward to the next piece. The next piece is we hop on a phone call after your big Vegas experience and we get to know each other a little bit. And then it was January 11th. And the true story, January 11th, we're on a phone call. Dana and I are driving to Toronto on the 401. You and Justin are on the other line. And we just caught up on each other's lives and talked about the new year. And it was January 11th of 2019. And how maybe there's something about Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan that just might be interesting. Do you remember that phone call?
I do. It was Justin's birthday. It's funny because somehow between that phone call and what we did, we looked on the internet and found out that Mac the Moose was actually the second largest moose statue in the world. We always thought that, Moose Jaw, one, it's called Moose Jaw. And two, please go. And two, we're like, well, how can you be called Moose Jaw and have the second largest statue? So we had this idea, let's just go and challenge the mayor to fix the situation. So we just went on a whim, which is what kind of the secret to our success was. When you have a good idea, just try it out. What's the worst that could happen? It could just not work, right? We did the video, we challenged it, and before you know it, that was like a Friday, I believe, Garrett?
It was a Friday. It was January 11th. That is so etched in my memory because it was the phone call, and then about 6-7 hours later, I get the text from you guys saying, look what happened. And this is what happened.
An egregious offense has been committed against you by the people of Norway. The people in Oslo, Norway, purposely, and I mean purposely, created a moose bigger than Mac the Moose by 30 centimeters.
30 centimeters.
Stick it to us and
Stick it.
the world's largest moose statue. We people of Saskatchewan.
Now you guys go on and do your egregious offense, righteous indignation. Tell us what happened next.
Well, we knew one of two things would happen. Either it would fall flat or it would blow up, because the thing about small towns is they're very prideful. When you have a community and even like a business here of people that really care about you, then they're gonna get your back. So we put this out there, and sure enough, I think it was 250,000 people in a town the size of, I think it's 70,000 people in Moose Jaw. So 4 or 5 times the size of the people watched this video and said, yes, what are we going to do about this? Come Tuesday, Fraser told me the mayor of Moose Jaw accepts the challenge and delivers the world a PR class of how to be an incredible mayor. And the next thing I know, that was Tuesday. Come Wednesday or Thursday, the mayor of the small town in Norway fires shots across the Atlantic Ocean back at the mayor. And the next thing I know, we've got an international moose war on our hands.
Yeah. No, it's an international incident because Fraser told me, to your point, goes out, pours lots of gasoline on the fire, draws a line in the snow, says, you ain't messing with our moose. And then the good sport that she is, the deputy mayor from Norway jumps in. It's It's a free for all. It's a brouhaha. The punchline to the story is this. Greg, as you know already, your video, a $50 video that you and Justin shot, and I'm thinking out of that $50 budget, about 30 went to your Wendy's drive-through stop. That's my guess. Okay. That video wound up getting worldwide media coverage to the point where an independent audit estimates it's worth more than $7 million worth of free publicity. The city of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, like you say, it's not a big town, feels incredible pride over regaining the title, because Mac the Moose did undergo an antlerectomy and got the title restored. There was an International Moose Summit. There's great pride, but also, as you well know, Greg, the tourism impacted just in 2019. Forget everything else, but tourism went up more than 30%. Yeah. These are real hard dollars going into the Moose Jaw local economy that, you know, social media and your efforts played a significant role.
It's funny when, I work in traditional media now in radio, but when I worked in the ad world, it was like there was a war between social and traditional, and really they can work together. But having lived the social world, Gary, I know the impact. When people say social doesn't work, I say, well, social worked enough to get me on the New York Times and the Washington Post and the largest radio show, BBC World, that has 90 million listeners, right? It's less about social and more about, what are you doing for your audience? How are you creating things that your audience actually cares about? We didn't know the video was going to blow up and become an international incident, but we did know that there was going to be a strong core of people in Moose Jaw that probably would have cared about the video. And truthfully, Gary, that was enough for us. We said, we're going to make this video for this audience. And if they love it enough, that's good enough for us. And sure enough, again, the ripple effects went way further than that. But we focused down on, what do they care about? And what do we care about? And where's the Venn diagram? Where's the middle part that we can create some sort of content that fits both of those things?
So when you think about the legacy of what you and Justin and all of your involvement in social media, and we're going to talk a little bit about your current career, but when you think about the legacy and how it relates to someone watching right now, someone's got a small business, they might have time on their hands, they know they probably should make a splash into social media, primarily with video. What can you tell them? Are there some top of mind salient points that are particularly useful right now, given the situation, in terms of how can they build their brand?
Yeah, I would say, you probably have time now, because we all have time given this Corona crisis and the isolation and quarantine. And there's never been a better time for you to try and experiment with whatever you want. Double down on your strengths. Okay, what are you good at? So Justin was a fantastic videographer. We both like to tell stories, and we committed and said, we're going to try and do fun things. Now, we're talking about the videos of ours that did really well. We did a lot of videos, Gary, that they were fine. They didn't do a ton, but it was those videos that we tried and failed at that allowed us to get to the skill set and the storytelling and the opportunity of these bigger videos. So if you're in a business at home right now and everyone's online looking for something to do, because we're all crushing Netflix. I think Disney Plus grew to 50 million subscribers faster than anyone ever imagined. We're sitting at home, we're just consuming content, which is a challenge because you have to compete with those eyeballs. But at the same time, people actually care about your business too. So if you can give them something interesting, something that they might care about, something that surprises and delights them, there's a very good chance that you could catch their attention and they go, oh yeah, right, this local shop down the road or this medium-sized business, they made me laugh, smile, they made me feel something, and now I want to engage in their content. So much.
But what I'm hearing is, do not talk about your product.
Yeah, I was going to say, so much advertising and business involves it's saying, hey, look, think of us. And like, no, don't think of us. Give them something bigger than you. Give them something that makes them smile, laugh. Not that you can't have your product in it, but it's not about you. It's about them. How do you give your audience something that they care about? And we always think, they care about us. That's why they're following us on Facebook. Well, they're probably following you on Facebook because they needed your product at one time, but they won't need you again for 5 years. So how, from now to that 5-year point, Do you keep them entertained so they don't go, I'm so tired of being advertised to by this client, I want to unfollow them, right? Take some risks, try something unique. Maybe it's a cooking thing, right? Maybe there's something out there that you go, I'm really passionate about cooking. Well, how does cooking tie into my car business? Well, there's probably a tie in there, and there's no better chance to try now because, one, you've got the time. Two, if you fail, you're actually moving yourself forward down to that path to success. And three, you might find 3 to 15 to 300,000 people that think it's amazing. You just don't know.
Greg, we could talk all day, and I know you've got a busy life, and you got your little girls right behind your left shoulder, and she might have to make a cameo appearance. But tell us a little bit about this new career of yours, because I do want you to do the shameless plug. You're on the Green Zone, very popular show in Saskatchewan, and I'm dying to go in and listen to these shows. You just had some of the great broadcasters, Ron McLean, Kenny Albert, Chris Cuthbert, Don Cherry. I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit on the evolution from Justin and Greg to the Green Zone and everything you're doing now.
Yeah, so after Justin and Greg, you can imagine that we needed a change of pace. And so the radio called, and we had done some stuff with Justin and Greg on this radio station. It's the largest radio station in Saskatchewan. They said, you know what, guys, we love what you're doing. Is there room to get you on the station? And I love sports. You're wearing the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, I love anything to do with sports and sports athletes and people. And so I said, you know what, let's explore this. And sure enough, there was a spot as a co-host on, they call it the Green Zone. It used to be a solely Saskatchewan Rough Rider show. Now it's a broad sports show. And I'm just taking what I learned in Justin and Greg in the online world and applying it to the Green Zone. So one of the easiest ways, Gare, is when we were doing online, people said like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. Or why would someone in New York, the Jimmy Fallon show, care about Saskatchewan? We said, well, why not? We're going to try. And so in this radio world, I do the same thing. Well, why can't Don Cherry be on our show? Why can't we get Bob Cole on our show? Why can't we get, Rick Nash on our show? And it's the same mindset that translates to the traditional world of you got to dream for it and you got to go for it. And what's the worst that can happen? They say no. And so I've been there for 9-10 months now. It is very different. I will give you that, but a lot of the same principles. You got to dream, you got to be creative. And it's funny, we kind of lump traditional media into this world sometimes of like, oh, it's old and stiff. The people behind my job, it's one of the reasons I'm still there, is they want us to be creative. They want us to try new things and to break the mold and get out there and reinvent radio in a lot of ways. And so it's been a treat, honestly, to be able to sit down with Don Cherry and Ron McLean and Bob Cole. Bob Cole is someone I've listened to my entire life. And not talk about sports, Gare, but talk about his life, talk about amazing stories. Like yesterday, Gord Miller told us a story about how he was at the Turin Olympics in 2006 and he worked for, I think it was CBC then, and got his credentials pulled when they got there because CBC lost the rights to CTV. So he had no way of doing his job and covering the Turin Olympics. So what he had to do was buy scalp tickets from this guy named Smiley every single day to get into the Olympics. And just stories like that. It's a blast. I'm learning a ton, and I'm thankful. I really am.
Well, anyone watching today, if you're like me, you're going to be checking out Greg Moore on the Green Zone. Here's where I thought we could wrap up, Greg. So much of what we know about brand building and marketing, you will hear that language coming back to things like demographics and ROI and measurement. When I think about our shared experience with Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and there you and Justin are with, Fraser told me, Crystal Froze, who's one of the counselors, what price, what value can you put on it when every time you walk through Moose Jaw, people stop to talk to you?
You can't put a price on it. And it was amazing for us to hear that study about, I think, $7 million worth of brand impressions. The thing that people need to consider, Garrett, too, is one, I believe that you can do it, but two, it does cost you something. You have to be secure enough in yourself and your business to try, because a lot of people want to have this perception that, oh, I don't want to fail. I don't want to put myself out there. And that's universal. We're all built that way. We all don't want to humiliate ourselves. But in order to discover what we're talking about today, you have to find the courage within you to say, you know what, I believe this is right. And I'm going to find the courage to put myself out there and fail publicly or potentially embarrass myself. If you're not willing to put yourself in there, then you're going to be like every other business and you're just going to try and follow the rules in the cookie cutter platform. What I'm asking you to do is dig deep inside you and say, you know what? I actually want to be different. I want to be someone who's a mogul and try to, well, change the world, get people's attention, do whatever it takes. That isn't an easy thing as human beings, but I believe you can get there if you want it bad enough. And if you can get there, you can win. I don't promise you that you can win, but I promise you that you're on the path to success and you have a chance to win. If you look at any major company that has launched out and you actually look at their story, read their book or their autobiography, what we're talking about today, it's never like we started a company and then we blew up and became Amazon. There's 1,000 different iterations along the way. And what we're talking about is putting yourself in a position to be those iterations as opposed to sitting back on the sidelines and not doing anything.
You know, I'm thinking here, what's the potential title for this conversation? We're having these unedited, unscripted conversations. I'm thinking, is the title Step Up and Step Into Your Own Story? Is that the title, Greg?
Yeah, I love that because no one's going to do it for you. It's one thing I'm realizing, even sitting back here retelling these stories, Gary, it's not going to happen. No one's going to be like, hey, guess what? I mean, you might get a promotion, you might get this, but in terms of the dream inside us for this successful business, to grow our business, to grow our brands, it's going to take risk. It's going to take effort. And as much as we don't want that, because we're like, oh, I don't want any sort of risk. That's what it costs. And so it's up to you. And I love when people put themselves out there and try and honestly, Gary, you see this more from small businesses because one, they don't have the resources oftentimes. Oftentimes they don't have $1 million budget to go buy their way into people's minds. They go, you know what? I have to outthink and out innovate and out creative the competition. And that's why I love small businesses, because in many ways they have nothing to lose. They go, oh, okay, I have a $50 budget for the month of January. How does this work? Well, guess what? What if you did a video about the moose and then the moose and the rest is history, right?
Well, like I say, Greg Moore is one of the great ambassadors from the province of Saskatchewan. His radio program is called The Green Zone, and we are so grateful, Greg, that you took the time to spend with us today to give small to medium-sized business owners and business leaders everywhere some ideas on how they can move forward and how we can all step up, step into our own story and lead together through these historic times and emerge much stronger when we get to the other side.